The wind carved through the tall pines of Montana's Gallatin Range, carrying with it the sharp bite of an early winter. Snow had come 2 weeks too soon, silencing the forest and blanketing the trails in an icy white hush. Ellie Bennett, 6 years old and barely 4 feet tall, had vanished into that silence. It was supposed to be a short family hike, just her and her mom Rachel, up Hollow Ridge Trail. A few hours, some hot cocoa afterward, then back to their cozy cabin on Pine Loop Road. But in a single distracted moment, Ellie had slipped out of sight. 1 second she was giggling and chasing after a red leaf, the next she was gone. Now, 48 hours later, the trailhead was lined with rescue vehicles, search dogs, and worried locals bundled in layers. Helicopters had scanned the area. Infrared had shown nothing. The snow kept falling. Raymond Green stood at the edge of the trail, the crunch of snow beneath his boots barely audible over the gusting wind. At 62, Raymond was a retired firefighter and local search and rescue coordinator. He'd seen a lot over the years: lost hikers, bear attacks, kids who wandered too far. But this case pierced deeper, because 10 years ago he'd buried a daughter of his own. Different circumstances, same hollow ache. "She's just a kid," a young officer muttered beside him. "There's no way she's still—" Raymond turned sharply. "Don't say it." The officer looked away, chastised. Raymond's eyes scanned the tree line, calculating. 6 years old, likely scared, no survival training, 1 granola bar in her coat pocket. Temperatures had dropped to 16 degrees last night. They should have found something by now. Behind him, Rachel sat on a crate near the ranger's cabin, wrapped in a gray blanket, hands trembling over a thermos she couldn't bring herself to drink. Her lips were cracked, her voice hoarse. She'd screamed Ellie's name into the forest until she collapsed from exhaustion. Raymond approached slowly. "She loved animals," Rachel whispered before he could speak. "Birds, dogs, even raccoons. Talk to them like they understood." He nodded gently. "She never wandered off before. She's quiet. She doesn't really talk to people." Rachel paused. "Autism spectrum, mild, but enough that strangers scare her." Raymond crouched beside her. "We're not giving up." But deep inside, even he couldn't stop the thought that flickered through every rescuer's mind after the second night in weather like this. Hope was running out. Up the ridge, another search party returned empty-handed. No footprints, no scarf, no callback to their voices, just wind and falling snow. They didn't know it yet, but Ellie wasn't alone. The forest floor was a mosaic of ice, roots, and fading autumn leaves, now crusted over by a thin layer of snow. Somewhere between the second ridge and a frozen stream bed, Ellie lay curled against the base of a hollowed pine, her small body shivering beneath a too thin purple jacket. Her cheeks were pale, lashes dusted with frost. She hadn't cried, not since yesterday, not since she realized no one could hear her. Above her, the sky was an iron gray. The wind howled through the trees like a warning. Ellie's fingers, numb and mottled, clutched a broken shoelace she'd tied around her wrist, a little thing she used to calm herself when everything felt too loud. She closed her eyes and imagined the warmth of her mother's arms, the crackle of the fire, the quiet click of ceramic mugs in the kitchen. Then she heard it. Not wind, not branches, not footsteps. Breathing. Slow, heavy, close. Her eyes snapped open. A dark shape moved between the trees, low to the ground, deliberate. A wolf? A bear? She couldn't tell. Her breath caught in her throat. She pressed herself tighter into the base of the tree, trying to disappear into bark and shadow. The figure stepped forward, and light from the gray sky revealed a black dog, large, ragged, with a thick coat matted in places and eyes the color of ash. It looked wild. Its ribs hinted at hunger, scars marred its side. But there was something else. It didn't growl, didn't bare teeth. It stood still, ears twitching in the wind, eyes locked on hers. Ellie didn't move. Her fingers tightened around her shoelace. The dog took a step closer, then another, then lay down, just a few feet away, watching her, tail wrapped around its paws like it had no intention of leaving. For a long time, neither moved. Then Ellie blinked, eyes glassy, her lips parted. "Dog," she whispered, barely audible, as if the word itself surprised her. The dog didn't react. She reached a trembling hand forward. It didn't flinch. With painstaking effort, she shifted closer, inch by inch. She placed her hand gently on its shoulder, expecting warmth. What she felt instead was bone under fur. Still, she didn't pull away. Her fingers traced the faint scar near its collarbone. The dog looked at her, eyes tired but steady. Then it moved. Slowly, it curled its body around her, resting its massive head near her shoulder. It was a shield, a furnace, For the first time in nearly 2 days, Ellie stopped shaking. Nightfall came like a curtain of iron, swallowing the forest in cold and silence. The wind screamed through the trees, sharp enough to slice skin. Ellie pressed deeper into Shadow's side, her face buried in the thick fur of his chest. He was shivering now, but never moved away. Snowflakes caught in his fur like ash. His eyes remained open, watching, listening. Hours passed. Ellie slipped in and out of shallow sleep, her dreams fractured by hunger and cold. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, the sound of branches cracking made Shadow rise. His ears flattened, a low growl vibrated through his chest. Ellie stirred, blinking against the darkness. At first she didn't see it. Then 2 amber eyes appeared between the trees. A bear. Massive, silent, drawn by the scent of blood or the faint heat of 2 small lives huddled together. It stepped forward slowly, steam rising from its nostrils with each breath. Shadow stood, muscles tense, body shielding Ellie. He didn't bark, didn't lunge, just stared. The bear advanced. Shadow exploded forward with a roar that seemed too deep for a dog. He rammed into the bear's chest, teeth sinking into fur. The 2 tumbled in the snow, a blur of teeth and fury. Ellie screamed. The world narrowed into sound, growls, yelps, the heavy thud of weight against frozen earth. Shadow was smaller, faster. The bear was stronger. But hunger had made it slow. Shadow's jaws clamped onto its shoulder. It reared up, slamming him against a tree. A sickening crack echoed. He crumpled but got back up, blood streaking his side. The bear turned, limped back into the woods. Defeated, but not dead. Shadow returned limping, his breath ragged, eyes glazed with pain. He dropped beside Ellie, blood dripping from a gash across his leg. She touched his head, and for the first time she didn't feel afraid. Just angry. Angry he was hurt. Angry the world was so cold. Angry no one had come for them. She tore a strip from her jacket sleeve and pressed it against the wound. Shadow didn't move. Morning came slow. The sun, weak and filtered through clouds, turned the snow a dull silver. Ellie's stomach ached. Her lips cracked. She hadn't eaten since the granola bar she found in her coat pocket, now long gone. Shadow stood, nose to the wind, then disappeared. Ellie curled against the tree, too weak to cry, too tired to worry. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Then, snow crunched. Shadow returned, dragging something behind him. A fish, floppy, wet, bitten, half-eaten. But food. He dropped it near her feet. Ellie stared, uncertain. He nudged it gently toward her. She picked it up, cold, slimy. She bit into the flesh. It tasted like metal and dirt, but it filled the emptiness just a little. Shadow lay beside her again, this time wincing. His breathing slowed. Ellie reached up, ran her fingers through the knots in his fur. He pressed his head into her palm. They were both broken, but not done. Far above, in a remote ranger tower, A red light blinked on a monitor. Movement detected. A thermal camera had picked up 2 heat signatures, small, close together, one slightly larger than the other. Someone was watching, and someone was finally listening. The call came in at 7:16 a.m. A ranger named Tessa Monroe, young, sharp, obsessive about her post, was monitoring the wildlife cameras set across the southern basin of Gallatin Range. Her eyes locked onto one frame, a thermal blur on a snow-covered ridge. 2 shapes, one child-sized, one canine, both huddled close, still alive. Within an hour, the rescue team mobilized again for the 3rd day in a row, this time with coordinates. Helicopters sliced through the sky, snow kicking up beneath the blades as Raymond Green stepped out with a GPS device and a burning ache in his chest. Please let her be alive. Please let the stories about the dog be real. It took them 90 minutes on foot to reach the hollowed pine. When they did, Raymond saw it before anyone else, a flash of purple, a still body, and beside it, black fur dusted with frost. The dog. Jesus, one of the younger rangers whispered. Ellie was breathing, weak but warm, her arms curled around the animal's neck like it was part of her. The dog, Shadow, lifted his head. Blood matted one side of his chest. He didn't bark, didn't move, just stared with those ash-colored eyes as if to say, "I did my job." Raymond knelt slowly, reaching toward Ellie. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "we've got you now." She stirred, one eye opened. She whispered, voice cracked and raw, "Don't hurt him." Those were her first words to anyone but the dog. The next 30 minutes were chaos wrapped in relief. Paramedics lifted Ellie onto a stretcher, bundled her in heated blankets, inserted IV fluids. Shadow stood barely, watching them load her into the chopper. When one rescuer tried to approach him, he bared his teeth, not in aggression, but in warning. Raymond intervened. "He's not a threat. He's a protector." But not everyone agreed. By the time Ellie reached Bozeman General Hospital, news vans were already setting up outside. Someone had leaked the story. 6-year-old girl found alive after 3 days in the wild, rescued by a mysterious black dog. By noon, social media had named him Miracle Shadow. Hashtags trended, artists drew sketches, animal lovers demanded answers. And the government gave one? The Department of Wildlife issued a formal statement that evening. The dog was unregistered, unvaccinated, potentially rabid, and exhibited behavior consistent with unpredictable wild animals. He was to be detained for quarantine and, pending evaluation, euthanized. "We understand the emotional nature of this case," the spokesperson said, "but public safety must come first." The internet erupted. Thousands posted in outrage, tweets flooded with "Save Shadow" and "He saved her." Petitions surged past 300,000 signatures within hours. Talk shows debated the line between instinct and heroism. But behind the hospital's closed doors, Rachel Bennett sat by her daughter's side, watching as Ellie drew crayon pictures of her and Shadow curled under a tree. "She hasn't said more than 3 words since we got here," Rachel said to Raymond, who stood by the door. "But when she draws, he's always there. She's never alone in those drawings." Raymond folded his arms. "They'll come for him, not to help, to erase." "Then we don't let them," Rachel said quietly. But it was already happening. Animal control officers had tracked Shadow near the ranger's cabin the following night. They set up tranquilizer traps. They left baited meat. They installed motion sensor cameras. What they didn't realize was that Shadow had seen them before they ever saw him. And he was already gone. Dr. Anna Brooks had always trusted science, facts, patterns, data. For over 15 years, she'd worked as a wildlife vet in the Bozeman area, patching up bears mauled in territory fights, deer tangled in fences, even wolves hit by snowmobiles. But nothing absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the creature now lying sedated on her clinic table. Shadow had been found wandering the edge of the canyon 2 nights after Ellie's rescue, weak, bleeding, tranquilized by a dart meant for larger predators. When the officers brought him in, they called him a threat. Anna, watching through the observation window, saw something else. He wasn't wild, not completely. His teeth weren't ground down from scavenging, his paw pads weren't cracked like a wanderer's. He didn't cower or attack when she approached. He just stared, quiet, intelligent. She ran the tests anyway. Blood work, stool sample, DNA swab. The first results came in odd, some cellular anomalies. Elevated oxytocin receptors in his prefrontal cortex? That shouldn't be possible. The second results came in stranger, enhanced myelination in his neural pathways, something that mimicked emotional processing in humans. The third result stopped her cold. The DNA panel didn't match any known domestic breed. Not a husky, not a shepherd, not even a wolf-dog hybrid. 27% of his genome was unidentifiable. Anna closed the folder, heart pounding, then opened her encrypted terminal and typed in an old password. One from her years consulting with a now-defunct federal project. Canine Empathic Behavioral Trials. The program had been shut down in 2016, quietly, without explanation, funded by a black budget stream hidden beneath wildlife research grants. She'd been asked to consult once, just once. She remembered a briefing, a slide deck, a photo. Subject 9, black fur, pale eyes, high reactivity, high attachment, anomalous response to emotional stimuli. It was him. Shadow. Her screen blinked. Access denied. 2 minutes later, her phone rang from an unknown number. No voice, just breathing. She yanked the plug from her modem. The next day, she went to see Raymond. They sat on the back porch of his cabin, the mountains glowing orange behind them. She slid the folder across the table. He's not just a dog. He's a mistake. A secret someone buried. Raymond flipped through the papers. What are you saying? I'm saying he's not supposed to exist. Raymond leaned back, eyes narrowed. You think that matters to Ellie? Anna didn't answer. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Ellie refused to speak to anyone but her sketch pad. In every picture, Shadow was there, next to her, watching, protecting. One drawing caught Rachel's eye. Shadow standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind him, a shadowy shape. Long, angular, with wires running from its back. Rachel showed it to Anna, who turned pale. She's remembering something, Anna whispered, something she didn't see with her eyes. Outside, protests grew louder. Supporters of Shadow marched through Bozeman's main square with signs that read, "He saved a child. You call him a threat?" Meanwhile, officials denied all connections to federal programs. They stuck to their narrative. Wild dog, dangerous, no prior record. But the truth had already slipped through the cracks. And Shadow, wherever he was now, carried more than scars. He carried the evidence. Ellie hadn't spoken in 13 days. Not to her mother, not to the nurses, not even to Raymond, who'd taken to sitting beside her hospital bed with hot chocolate and stories he half hoped she was listening to. But she drew. Every day, every hour, quietly, intensely. Piles of crayon sketches filled her bedside drawer, and in every single one of them, Shadow was there. In one, he lay curled beneath a starry sky. In another, he stood between her and a giant faceless figure with sharp hands. One showed him bleeding on the snow, another showed him staring into a mirror, and what looked back wasn't a dog. It was something else, something older, something watching. The doctors called it trauma processing. The therapist said it was good, but Rachel didn't care about the labels. She just wanted to hear her daughter's voice again. Then came the press conference. It had been arranged hastily, partly to thank the community for their support, partly to address the escalating controversy. Protesters now lined the streets outside City Hall. Save Shadow had become a global hashtag translated into 7 languages. Anonymous leaks had surfaced, emails hinting at government cover-ups, screenshots of experimental animal logs with redacted names. But still, no official would confirm anything. The mayor, 2 state reps, and a carefully chosen child psychologist stood behind the podium. Then came Ellie. Small, pale, her hand gripping Rachel's tightly. Her crayon drawings had been scanned and projected onto the screen behind them. The crowd fell silent as the lights dimmed. The psychologist stepped up first. Ellie has been through something no child should ever endure. We ask for your respect and compassion as she chooses to share what she feels comfortable with. But Ellie stepped forward on her own. The microphone was too high. Raymond adjusted it. Her voice, small, dry, cut through the silence like glass on marble. "Ed'ing find me," she said. "I found him." No one moved. She took a breath. Her lips trembled, but her eyes were clear. "I was cold. I was scared, but he laid next to me. He made it stop." A pause. "He got hurt so I wouldn't be." Rachel wept quietly beside her. Ellie looked down at her drawing and held it up. It showed Shadow curled around her like a black moon. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just stayed. Another pause. And when the big man came, when he had wires on his back, Shadow looked at me and stood still, like he was showing me I didn't have to be scared. There was no sound in the room except for the quiet clicks of 100 press cameras. "I want him to come home." With that, she stepped back, and the world changed. The video was streamed live. Within hours, it was clipped, captioned, and posted on every platform. Celebrities tweeted their support. A war veteran from Texas offered a private sanctuary. A senator proposed emergency legislation to block euthanasia of heroic animals. Rachel's inbox filled with letters, thousands, from parents, from survivors, from strangers who'd never believed in anything until now. And somewhere out there in the wilderness, a dog with ash-colored eyes lifted his head at the sound of helicopters passing far overhead. He blinked, then disappeared back into the trees. Snow had returned to the southern ridge by the time 5-year-old Nathan Rivers disappeared. It happened during a father-son camping trip. A sudden mudslide cut through the valley after a day of unexpected rain. In the chaos, Nathan wandered off the trail, his father slipping while trying to catch him. By the time rangers arrived, the sun had set, the terrain was unstable, and Nathan was gone. Ellie heard the news from a nurse passing through her hospital room. She didn't say a word, just listened, then quietly climbed out of bed, walked to the window, and stared at the tree line in the distance. That night, she didn't sleep. She drew. By morning, she had filled 3 pages. One showed a cave under twisted roots, lit only by moonlight. Another showed a tiny boy in a red jacket sitting beside a small stream, head down, shivering. In the final drawing, Shadow stood beside the boy, not touching him, just watching, eyes bright as stars. Rachel found the sketches before Ellie could hide them. "These are new," she said softly. "You saw this?" Ellie nodded. "In my dream, but it wasn't a dream." Rachel showed the drawings to Raymond. He studied them in silence, then called the rescue team leader. "You'll think I'm crazy," Raymond said, "but there's something in this." They brought the drawings to the command center. A senior officer rolled his eyes, but a junior ranger, Tessa Monroe, the same one who spotted the thermal signature that led to Ellie, recognized a pattern. The stream in the drawing matched a hidden tributary off the eastern cliff. The cave was real. She'd seen it once, but it was off map. They sent a drone. It crashed. They sent 2 men. Landslide blocked their route. On the 3rd attempt, Raymond went himself. He reached the stream by dusk. The wind cut like knives. The air was still, heavy. And then, just as the sun dipped behind the ridge, he saw it. A small boy, curled against a rock, and beside him, barely visible in the fading light, black fur. A massive body lying still, breathing shallow, eyes open. Raymond approached slowly. The dog didn't move, just watched him come. Nathan was alive, cold, dehydrated, but alive. He'd been gone for nearly 36 hours. Did he stay with you? Raymond asked the boy, wrapping him in a thermal blanket. Nathan nodded. He licked my face when I cried. Back at the camp, medics rushed to work. Nathan was stable, but Shadow was gone. He'd vanished before the team returned. No paw prints, no trail, just an empty patch of snow, disturbed once, then not again. News spread fast. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. This was something else. Shadow had saved 2 children now. Without training, without command, without even being seen by most of the people who owed him their lives. The world exploded again. Even skeptics faltered. Articles ran headlines like The Phantom Shepherd and Guardian of the Lost. Documentaries were pitched. Scientists called it a statistical anomaly. Poets called it a miracle. Ellie just smiled and whispered to the camera, "He's still working." By week's end, the governor had issued a stay of euthanasia, and a new bill, Shadow's Law, was introduced to Congress, protecting animals that demonstrated heroic behavioral anomalies during child rescue scenarios. It sounded clinical, but people knew what it meant. They were protecting a ghost, a myth, a dog no one could catch, but everyone hoped to see again. And somewhere miles away, beneath a silver sky dusted with snow, a black figure stood on a ridge, watching the forest below. Then, as if on cue, he disappeared once more. 2 years passed. The world moved on, as it always does. But in Silver Pine County, Montana, the name Shadow never really left. It lingered on bumper stickers and murals, on local coffee mugs and kids' backpacks, on the bronze plaque beneath the town's new statue, a black dog standing guard beside a little girl in a winter coat. No leash, no collar, just instinct. Ellie had changed too. She spoke now. Not much, but enough. Enough to ask questions in class. Enough to tell her mother she loved her at bedtime. Enough to read books out loud when no one was watching. She kept the red scarf she'd worn the night she disappeared, now folded carefully in her dresser drawer, beside a worn, hand-drawn picture of her and Shadow under the stars. Raymond retired from search and rescue the same year the state passed Shadow's Law. He still hiked the ridgeline sometimes, half expecting to see a flicker of black fur just beyond the tree line. He never did. But the forest had a way of remembering. It was Ellie's 8th birthday when it happened. The snow came early that year, soft, quiet, like it had the night she was lost. Rachel had baked a cake, simple vanilla with cream cheese frosting. Friends gathered in the living room laughing, but Ellie wandered outside. She always did on her birthday, saying she needed to check the wind. That's when she saw it. A trail of prints. Not large, not fresh, but clear. 4 paths, precise, leading from the edge of the woods to the side porch, then back into the trees. Next to them, resting on a branch just within her reach, was a collar, old, cracked leather. No tags, no name, just a single brass button engraved with a faint lightning bolt. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. Instead, she closed her palm around it and whispered, "Thank you." That night, she placed the collar at the foot of her bed. And then she drew one more picture. A girl in a red jacket, a dog with eyes like stone. Behind them, tall pines wrapped in moonlight, and above, scrawled in her now steady handwriting, "He was never mine, but I was always his." No one ever saw Shadow again, not clearly. There were sightings, a blur by the highway, a black silhouette at the edge of a campground, paw prints that vanished mid-trail, but nothing confirmed, nothing captured. Just stories. And sometimes when the wind rushed low through the Gallatin Range, some swore they could hear the soft pad of paws moving between trees, steady, watchful. They said the forest had grown quieter since, safer, as if something out there still cared, still listened, still protected.